ever heard a devotee criticize a leader? Have you ever heard a devotee criticize someone else? Let me think. What are the chances that you have heard this? 108%. Yeah. So the other day in class, a devotee had become very discouraged because she was being criticized for what? For doing service. And as you know, it can be very discouraging to be criticized. So how do we deal with this? It's really important because probably if you do some nice service, someday someone's not going to like it. Okay, this is a tough one because we are human beings and we don't like to be derided, especially falsely. A lot of times people make assumptions about us. They don't know who we are. They don't know what they're doing. And they just categorize us in a class of, well, you're a this. And therefore, because you're a this, you must be, a temple president or a guru or a GBC or this. Because you're a this, therefore you're a that. Prabhupada told us that he had every reason to be discouraged, but he was never discouraged. A lot of discouragement from his godbrothers. So, in meditating on this deeply and trying to deal with it myself so I could remain encouraged, I had to realize one thing, that for some people, no matter what you do, they will criticize you because that's what they do. That's what they do best also. You've seen that, right? Maybe you're one of them, That's what you do best. Well, what is your skill set, Prabhu? Well, I can write, I can edit, but the best thing I do is criticize. That's my number one qualification and quality. So that's what some people do. Now, is that a mistake? Yes. So people are making the mistake of criticizing, often without information, often on hearsay. They just hear a rumor and they don't investigate it, and then they post it, and more people post it, and fake news gets around, and you are now persona non grata. So we then become affected by the wrong action of another person. Now, that doesn't make sense, does it? I now allow myself to become hurt, or we could say, I'm punishing myself because this other person did something wrong. So I find it's very important to understand that certain people will criticize. It's their nature. There's nothing you can do. And I'm not saying you may not have done anything wrong. And if you're being criticized for doing something wrong, you should listen. You should consider. When I'm criticized, I always consider what's being said, unless it's coming from a certain person who fabricates and interpolates and tries to throw knives at me. I know where he's coming from. But if other people criticize, I'll listen and say, did I actually do that in the first place? Does it make sense? Should I change? Let me consider what's going on. And if I just see it as it's pure, unadulterated envy, then I have to understand that that's the nature of this world, and that's where it's coming from. Now you might say, but shouldn't you adjust your activities so you won't be criticized? Yeah, sometimes. That's very important, You may be considering doing something which is okay, but in the eyes of some envious people, you're giving them a little room for them to interpret. So a lot of times what envious people do is they interpret your motives. And how do they interpret your motives? By placing themselves in your shoes and thinking, well, if I was in his shoes, it would be because I would be motivated, I would be ill-motivated. So really, they're just expressing their own motive when they're challenging your motives. But so you have to be careful, because you say, well, I am going to do this service in this situation with these people, but envious people could think my motives are wrong because it could be interpreted that way. So yeah, you have to be careful. That's for sure. I could say one last thing about being criticized is that it's definitely humbling, because most of us think we're kind of great people, good guys, good girls, good gals. And I have some bad news for you. Not everybody thinks like that about you. So it might be good, to know that. It's a little humbling, that everybody doesn't love us like they love God or they love Prabhupada. It is humbling, right? And obviously true, but sometimes we forget. But do your best. Be humble. Be sincere. Be motivated by pure reasons. And if people then criticize you, just keep going on. What can you do? Hare Krishna.